A task force to conduct constitutional reform consultation. Hong Kong TV network to seek judicial review soon. And a deal to avoid U.S. debt default.
Good evening. U.S. Congress passed legislation early this morning, Hong Kong time, to avert a debt default by Washington and end a government shutdown. As Alan Booknear reports, President Barack Obama quickly signed a spending measure, capping weeks of political brinksmanship.
We'll begin reopening our government immediately, and we can begin to lift this cloud of uncertainty and unease from our businesses and from the American people. I'll have more to say about this tomorrow.
The bill reopens the government through January 15th and permits Washington to borrow normally through February 7th, or perhaps a month longer. It includes nothing for Republicans demanding to eradicate or scale back Obama's signature health care overhaul.
On this vote, the yeas are 285, the nays are 144. The motion is adopted.
The deal calls for the setting up of a bipartisan commission to come up with long-term deficit reduction ideas. It also includes some income verification procedures for those seeking health care subsidies.
This is far less than many of us had hoped for, frankly, but it's far better than what some had sought. Now it's time for Republicans to unite behind other crucial goals.
The eyes of the world have been on Washington all this week, and that is a gross understatement. This time was really hard. But after weeks spent facing off across a partisan divide that often seemed too wide to cross, our country came to the brink of a disaster.
Economists estimate the whole political mess cost the American government $23 billion and a half point off of fourth quarter economic growth. But it could also hit U.S. credibility.
The fact that we came this close has really tarnished the reputation in a way that I don't know that the U.S. government can quickly recover from. And that could have real costs, real financial costs in terms of long-run interest rates and also just the role of the dollar.
And a lot of that will depend on whether lawmakers face the same partisan bickering when the deal runs out early next year. Alan Booknear, TVB News.
Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying has announced the setting up of a constitutional development task force to carry out public consultation on the 2016 Legislative Council election and the Chief Executive election in 2017. The government will issue a consultation document by the end of the year. The Pan-Democrats say the government is buckling to pressure from the Occupy Central movement, but they're also worried that it is all too late. Jenny Lam reports.
The Chief Executive started his first question and answer session in the Legislative Council for the current legislative year this morning with an announcement on the setting up of a task force on constitutional development.
I announced that there will be a consultation task force to be led by the Chief Secretary for the Administration. Members of the task force include the Secretary for Justice and the Secretary for Constitution and Mainland Affairs. We strive to publish a consultation paper at the end of the year, and we'll formally initiate the public consultation exercise on the electoral methods for forming the Legislative Council and electing the Chief Executive in 2017.
Chief Secretary for Administration Carrie Lam is set to prepare what she believes will be a comprehensive public consultation document over the next couple of months.
I can say that to deliver the universal suffrage in the selection of the Chief Executive is the common goal of the Central People's Government, the Hong Kong SAR government, and many people in Hong Kong. At the same time, that we must follow the provisions in the Basic Law and the decision and interpretation of the National People's Congress Standing Committee, because these are the basic framework governing the selection of the Chief Executive in Hong Kong.
Secretary for Justice Rim Ski-yoon made clear that public nomination of candidates for the Chief Executive election will only be considered if it is in line with the Basic Law. The Democrats think the government is buckling to the pressure from the Occupy Central movement.
And we are worried that the whole consultation would be speedily carried forward and without really a sincerity in consulting public in the whole political reform package, and that actually they will try to bulldoze their reform proposal instead of really listening to the people.
And isn't Carrie Lam in charge of just one thing too many?
Ms. Lam is being in charge of already 3 important committees. The Property Commissions, a committee on rubbish, and then there will be an announcement of a consultation paper on population issues. And now she also chairs the political reform committees. So from rubbish to political reform, all relied on Mrs. Lam. What happened to our government? Is it the whole government only got Mrs. Lam?
More positive reaction came from the pro-establishment camp.
DAB welcomed the start of the political development consultation, and we urge the POPIC to submit proposal which is according to basic law, and we really hope that we can have the universal suffrage of chief executive in 2017.
Consultation for the 2012 constitutional reform began in 2007. A report was later submitted to the National People's Congress Standing Committee. So if that was anything to go by, there are 5 steps to go through. First, submit a report to the National People's Congress Standing Committee. Second, the committee has to approve it. Third, the SAR government puts forward its proposals. If that is approved by a 2/3 majority in LegCo, then stage 4 is for the chief executive to approve it. The 5th, the report has to be submitted to the NPC Standing Committee again. It then goes through the legislative process in Hong Kong before it can be implemented in the 2016 LegCo election and the 2017 chief executive election. The Pan Democrats said today they are worried it is all too late, and that would be true if there are any hiccups along the way. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
The chairman of the Hong Kong television network, Ricky Wong, says his company will likely seek judicial review of the government's decision to reject his bid for a free TV license within weeks. He also says the identity of the official who encouraged him to submit his application years ago will be disclosed in court. Meanwhile, the chief executive faced a barrage of criticism from lawmakers for the government's handling of the licensing process. Joel De Silva reports.
On RTHK this morning, Ricky Wong was on the offensive. Angry at the government's refusal to disclose the reasons behind the rejection to grant his TV station a free-to-air license, Wong said it is probable that HKTV will seek judicial review within weeks. He also vowed to disclose in court the name of the official who back in 2009 told him to submit the application. Meanwhile, Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying felt the heat from this controversy. During a question and answer session, legislators said the license granting process lacked transparency and demanded explanations from the Chief Executive.
The decision did not command any credibility. It was on no ground. It showed disregard to public views. It had no regard to justice. We could only say it was a black box operation. I don't get to choose the chief executive. I don't get to choose the executive council. And now the government won't even give me a choice of TV programs. Now, the chief executive says that he attaches great importance to public opinion. But on the granting of TV license, he's acting against the will of the people.
The chief executive found shelter behind the confidentiality of executive council deliberations.
And all along, all the discussions or deliberations in the EXCO would not be made open or disclosed to the public. We have to work within the system, or else that would also affect the mechanism of the EXCO and the good operation of the EXCO.
Earlier this week, the government announced that it would grant free-to-air licenses only to PCCW and iCable Communications, leaving HKTV out of the free television market without an explanation. But with 440,000 people joining an HKTV Facebook support group and thousands planning to take to the streets on Sunday, one thing is for sure: this issue is already making waves well beyond these walls. João da Silva, TVB News.
Leung Chun-ying came under pressure from lawmakers today to impose sanctions against the Philippine government for its refusal to apologize and compensate the victims of the 2010 Manila hostage-taking incident. But emotions boiled over at LegCo as the chief executive chose to speak of the success of his efforts of engaging the Philippine government in dialogue instead. João da Silva again.
Under fire from legislators who demand a tougher hand from the Hong Kong government, Leung Chun-ying pointed at his success at opening the road for negotiations between the two governments. The chief executive did not answer questions about his willingness to step up action and instead described how during the recent APEC summit in Bali, he got Philippine President Benigno Aquino to agree to send officials to the negotiation table.
We do have strategies in taking the matter forward. We do have our own plans. We managed to make step-by-step progress, and moving on would be adopting soft and hard approaches. So we would be adopting multi-pronged approach in order to achieve our target.
And the chief executive added that the central government approved of the approach taken so far. Still, People Power legislators Albert Chan and Raymond Chan lost their cool and had to be escorted out of the chamber. And they were not alone in their discontent over the chief executive's answers.
Utterly disappointed by what the chief executive said about the Manila bus tragedy. I met with the family and survivors this morning, and they expected the chief executive to be able to talk about detailed plans towards sanctions against the Philippines in order to seek justice from the Filipino president. This was not delivered. So the chief executive appeared to be only a paper tiger.
After this morning's question and answer session with the chief executive, the dissenting voice was Starry Lee's. The pro-establishment legislator expressed satisfaction with Leung Chun-ying's answers, emphasizing that the important thing now is for the public to support the government's efforts.
I'm satisfied that the answer provided by the chief executive regarding the Philippine incident, and I think the most important things at this moment is to unify Hong Kong people as a whole, because our target or our partner is not an easygoing partner. We have to have the right tactic in order to achieve something.
João da Silva, TVB News.
Welcome back. Investigators are looking for answers after a Lao Airlines plane crashed into the Mekong River in southern Laos, killing all 49 people on board. The plane was carrying nationals from 10 countries when it went down late yesterday afternoon. Recovery crews were on the scene today. The flight had left the capital of Vientiane and was just 8 kilometers short of its destination of Pak Se, near the borders of Thailand and Cambodia. The ATR-72 turboprop was less than a year old. A senior aviation official said strong winds from the remnants of a recent typhoon may have been a factor in the crash.
The number of people who have died of pneumonia here in Hong Kong has more than doubled over the past 10 years, according to government data. It is now the city's second biggest killer disease. Experts say that's partly because many people do not realize the seriousness of that disease until it's too late. Here's Jenny Lam again.
Mr. Chow had all the symptoms of flu 4 years ago. Fever, a runny nose, a sore throat and a cough, he says. Little did he know he actually had pneumonia. It's an infection of the lungs by either viruses or bacteria, and nearly 80% of the cases in Hong Kong are caused by the bacterium Streptococcus pneumoniae. Government data shows that the number of people who died from pneumonia has more than doubled over the past 10 years. It is now the number 2 killer disease after malignant tumour and kills more people than heart disease and brain embolism. Respiratory disease expert Dr. Wong Man Yan explains that patients often do not seek help until it's too late. By then, their lung function cannot fully recover. They may still be able to go to work, but they can no longer carry out strenuous activities such as swimming, hiking and diving. A patients' rights group conducted a survey last August. They found that only 14% of those asked were vaccinated against Streptococcus pneumoniae. Doctors say pneumonia is not a seasonal disease, but flu viruses can lead to pneumonia. Their advice is to get vaccinated and on top of that have a balanced diet and avoid alcohol and smoking. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
The next Olympic Games are less than 3 years away in western Rio de Janeiro, the hub of the 2016 Games and the site of the Olympic Village. There is one site that may send athletes and spectators running scared, and it looks exactly like an alligator. These slithering creatures are called caimans. They become commonplace in Rio after 2 decades of unregulated growth decimated their natural habitat. Lured in part by the scraps tossed to them by humans, about 6,000 of them have taken up residence in lagoons. Conservationists insist caimans are less aggressive than alligators and crocodiles and are not considered a threat to humans. On average, they weigh about 10 kilograms. While most sporting events will be held indoors, officials in Brazil are frantically working on ways to move the creatures far away from the Olympic Games. And that's a slithering wrap of our news. Thanks for joining.
Caimans. Good night.